Welcome to Two Therapists Talking. The hope for this podcast is to talk about important issues related to couples and individuals who are struggling in their lives with many different issues. I'm David Thompson, a marriage and family therapist.
And I'm Sherie Christensen, marriage and family therapist. Please join us as we explore these issues together, and we hope you will learn and be enlightened along the way. Come find us at twotherapisttalking.com. If you like what you're hearing, please get on and rate us and subscribe to the podcast.
Hi, and welcome back to Two Therapists Talking. I'm David.
And I'm Sherie.
And we want to pick up where we left off, but if you're a regular...
Yes, you know
notice
that we had a little break.
We had a break. We took a little bit of a break. And it was for no other better reason than it just didn't work for a bit.
Yep.
With schedules and everything else, and so...
Which is great. It's a good reminder that life happens sometimes and that we can roll with it and that's fine.
Yep.
We don't have to get overly worked up about it. And we just look and say, yep, that's life. And we'll come back to it in a week or two when we can make it work with our schedules. So.
Yep. So we appreciate your patience. And
yes.
Especially if you were waiting for the second part
yes.
of these episodes, because we started on the partner stabilization after betrayal trauma.
Yes.
And we're following the CSAT informed model. So basically these are roadmaps to recovery for both the addict and the partner. And we had started the partners, and this is where we are picking up.
Yes. So we apologize if you were waiting with bated breath to hear the rest of this episode. But we are here now.
We're here now, and we will take care of it.
We are going to talk about it. So. If you remember, the first step on that roadmap to recovery is safety and stabilization. And the second one is boundaries and containment. So you want to normalize the trauma responses, stabilize your basics, making sure you're taking care of yourself, sleep, food, things like that, right? Reducing being re-traumatized, and then setting those boundaries with boundaries aren't boundaries unless they have a consequence that's attached to that. Otherwise, It's just a nice suggestion that can be discarded at will, right? Yeah. So setting those boundaries and kind of containing when you talk about it so that you're not, spending all night going over things or doing it at right before big events or things like that. You're going to kind of limit that and kind of contain that processing with each other. So those are the first two steps. And we're going to start today with step 3, which is the support team.
So support team, you definitely should not be doing this alone.
Right.
And, talking about when to process, likely you'll need help to process in therapy. And that's going to be the way to do this until you have some record or history together of being able to talk about some of these things and it goes well.
Yes.
Because both of you bring different fears and anxieties to talking about these things. And so you likely need some help and practice to do it on your own. And support is vital to this entire process for both you and your partner.
Right.
So what does that look like? Definitely therapy and betrayal trauma informed therapists who
yes.
have done this before, who understand the process, addiction, betrayal, and there are different certifications for this, as maybe you know now. Mm-hmm. But you definitely want to include therapy, and we would recommend partner group support.
Right.
And so not only, this is kind of a non-negotiable, I would say, for the addict is to have group. Mm-hmm. Because it's just where they can normalize a lot of the things that they struggle with, and you just need support. But also there are partner or there are groups for the person who's been betrayed.
Right.
These might be a little harder to find.
Maybe. Yeah. They're actually pretty prevalent usually in most places. Sometimes therapists will have groups, betrayal trauma or addiction groups that they run themselves. So it's a group therapy type setting. But then there are a lot of 12-step type groups as well. So S-Anon is a big one. That's the family and friends support group for sexaholics. Should I do that again?
Probably.
Okay. So S-Anon is a big one. That's for family and friends of Sexaholics Anonymous. So just kind of like Al-Anon is for AA. So that's a big group. It's an international group. You can go to sanon.org and find meetings in your area. Again, they have them all over. They even have remote groups online, phone meetings, things like that, where you can get support and help. And people there are going to know what you're going through. They're going to have been through those kinds of things themselves and can give you support and help. And it's a safe place to be able to talk and process through things. There are often religious groups that are based around these types of issues. Here in Utah, they have SAL group, which is similar to a S-Anon group, but it's a little more religiously oriented, just generally, they talk about God and things like that, but not religion specific. So you can usually find something it might be online if you're in a remote area, but if you're not, there's usually groups around that you can find. So it's nice to be able to have people that have been there, people that can give you support, ideas, that where it's going to be an anonymous or confidential, I guess is a better way to say that, confidential space.
Right. And in addition to these groups, choose 1 to 3 safe confidants, not children, for
Yes,
support
not your children.
and grounding. Definitely not. And, we've talked about this before, I know, in prior episodes. What makes for a safe confidant when it comes to supporting you through something like this?
Yeah, you want to make sure that it's someone who isn't going to be judgmental of either of you in the process.
Which is very tough, and you'll probably have to help them to know how best to support you.
Yes. Sometimes you can go to a family member or friend and they might be a little judgmental on the front end, but you can kind of coach them and you can say, hey, this is what's helpful for me.
Right.
I need someone who can hear me and support me and validate that this is hard, and help point me to helpful resources without shaming or judging me or my partner.
Right. And ideally, that's where you are, even if you're really, really hurt and struggling. Mm-hmm. We've talked about this many times. Do your best to be patient and let this stuff kind of sort itself in the beginning with their attitude, their willingness, their openness, their honesty. You have a disclosure process. There's different things that are going to be a part of this. And so if early on it's kind of just a lot of anger and now all your friends and family hate this other person, it's going to be very difficult if you start to work it out. And I've heard this many times in therapy, actually, where it's like, well, now kind of everybody's turned against them.
Yes.
But we're doing better.
Yeah.
But we're doing better and we want to stay together.
Yeah. That can, if you want to think, you want to make sure you're thinking long term on this.
Yeah.
If there's a chance for making amends and having things work out, you really have to be careful of making sure that your support system is one in which you can they can be non-judgmental and can be supportive of both of you through the process.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't mean that you're never going to feel hurt or angry. You just want to be careful where you're talking through those specific things. Like that's a good therapy place.
Yep.
Because your therapist is going to understand that that's part of the process, that they're not a horrible person 100%, and that you can have the potential to heal and grow and move on from that.
Yep.
Because you've got these support people that are only there for when you come to them, right? And so if you're coming to them over and over again in this place of anger and
Right.
whatever,
And they don't see.
yeah, they're
the other
not
side.
seeing the other side of that. They're not seeing the work that you are doing together. They're not seeing the positives, that they're just kind of your venting place. And so they're going to be stuck in that place and not understand the whole process and the good things that are happening. And then they're going to have to go through their own process of like healing and working through all of that, and, you know, working through their own aspect of that, if that's the only thing you've left them with.
Right. So hopefully that all makes sense. Just be careful about it. Make sure you do have good support. Mm-hmm. Too many people come in here and out of embarrassment and different reasons have told no one.
Yes.
And she often, who's been betrayed, is left entirely on her own.
Yeah.
And that is a very tough place to be. So
It's tough, it's lonely, it's isolating, and it's hard to heal when you don't have support. So yes,
Right.
you absolutely need that support. You don't want to isolate yourself. And you need to make sure that the support you're getting is going to actually be supportive of you, of the process of recovery and healing, both for you and hopefully also for your spouse. And sometimes we think someone is going to be supportive, and we go to them and we talk to them and we find out that they are not able to be supportive in the ways that we need. And that can be a really tricky thing for couples. And you can always stop sharing
right.
and always kind of pull back from that and find someone who is. And it can also then end up being a process of being able to like love and forgive each other as we're trying to find these supportive people, and not get really angry with them for sharing with someone who maybe wasn't as supportive as they were hoping that they would be.
Yeah. And this brings up, a really good point with all of this support. Sometimes people or groups that seem to be a good supportive place really aren't. Mm-hmm. And you can trust that if you feel like you leave talking to somebody or leave a group feeling more angry or more, there's a balance between people who you can relate to and they can relate to you, and you kind of work some of this out. But often there's not the best feeling after some of these conversations or support groups if they're in a different place than you are. And so I hear this often as well, where I don't feel great about the group or what they talked about or where they seem to be, but it's a betrayal trauma group, and so it must be really good. No, you can still trust how you feel about these things, and if it doesn't feel like it's helping you, certainly if it's not working towards a goal of reconciliation, if that's the goal that you have, you and your partner, it's okay to pause or step away from either the group or, this person if they feel like what they're offering is contrary to the goal that you have in the relationship.
Yes. Yes. There are definitely some individual groups, not kind of the whole in general, but some individual groups that the kind of feeling of the group ends up being more about like partner bashing or different things
Right.
like that. And so then it doesn't really become a very healthy space. And sometimes it's just a member or two of a group. And sometimes we can have patience with that. Like, okay, they're having a day.
Right.
They're going through, a hard time. I've definitely seen a lot of clients and had gone through a lot of experiences with clients with with people in groups that sometimes you just have a really rough time and you've been really gung-ho in the program, or maybe you're just new in the program and things just feel really hard and awful. And it's okay to have patience for them in the process, but if it becomes a big pattern, then it's like, okay, yeah, I can kind of step back from that or limit my interactions with that particular person if they're not able to kind of come back around to that space of support, or like at least being able to acknowledge that, oh, I see your goal is this, and I can be supportive of that, even if that's not what's happening for me in my life or the goal that I have for my life.
Right. And ideally, the support of the group ends on a hopeful note, so that, you process some hard things and hear some hard things, but it should end with kind of a, we will figure this out, we will get through this. And it doesn't leave you there where I've heard so many times from the partners, when they come home from these support groups, it's like the worst night of the week. And I'm really going to get it, even though we've been doing well. And I've heard that so many times. And so just something to be aware of and to pay attention to. And you can really, I believe, trust how you feel if this is leading you in the direction ultimately that you want to go.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really, really good point. I think that's true of the addict groups as well. Sometimes the addict groups will do the same thing. It kind of becomes a little bit of a breeding ground for,
Yeah.
Unhealthy behaviors and not being supportive of the relationship and spouses and healing and recovery and things like that. So it's something you always have to watch out for in groups.
Right. Yep.
And just not every group is made up of all of these individual people. And so, so you want to kind of go to a couple of groups especially if the first one that you go to doesn't feel quite right, but go to a couple of them and see where that healing and recovery is. You want a group that's going to provide for you what the kind of recovery, the kind of healing that you want. You want people in the group that are feeling that way. And obviously not everyone is going to be further along than you and in this bright and shiny space, but you want to find a group where that positive movement forward and healing and recovery, and you have at least, one or two members that have been there long enough and have kind of got some of that recovery under their belt and that healing under their belt so that they can kind of help others along. Yeah. And sometimes when you are first going, it is hard. I do hear that a lot because it's kind of you're kind of coming into the space of reality. If you didn't know that this was a thing in your relationship, or how bad it was in the relationship, and then you start talking to other people who have been there, like it's hard. It's not a fun place to be initially, right? It can feel painful. And so hearing other people's that they've also been there and that it's also hard can be hard the first little bit as you're kind of coming into this new space of reality. Like, oh, this is actually how things are, right? So, so don't necessarily just go once and like chuck it. If you're like, oh, this is really hard, and I'm listening to people who've been through some really hard things, and there may be people who are going through a lot harder things than you are, and that can feel scary sometimes. But it doesn't mean that necessarily that your partner is going to go through those kinds of things.
Right.
It's just kind of where they are. So.
Yep.
So don't necessarily just throw it out. Give it a couple of times and kind of see what the flavor of the meeting is. Is it a meeting that is looking toward healing?
Yeah.
Okay. Number 4 is information processing. And we talk about this in terms of doing a disclosure, not discovery. So tell us about that, David.
So this is, I think, always necessary. It's just a matter of how.
Yeah.
Disclosure basically is getting all the relevant information, and I say relevant on purpose. If there's not help in a process, which, I don't blame anyone who, when they discover something like this, and everything changes from that moment, there's often a lot of, okay, you need to tell me whatever I ask and whenever I ask. And these conversations become very difficult and very challenging because early on, the addict is still going to be, okay, what do you know? What do you not know? I'm going to tell you what you seem to know, but not more. And it just
they're
gets
going
really
through
messy.
shame and they're
And
hurting
yeah,
and they don't want to get attacked and you're hurting and you're typically not going to respond in like perfectly gorgeous 100% ways, right? So it's just really hard at the beginning.
it's really hard. And ideally, if you start therapy soon enough, and not, after a year or something when it's been really hard, but ideally you put a pause on the questions and the information and shift into a process that's going to cover all the information, but gives both of you a break so that they can prepare and gather and think, and then you go through a formal disclosure process that may or may not include something like a lie detector test, which we've also talked about that, and I'm a big fan of that.
Me too.
Sometimes they're unnecessary, which is great. Most of the time they are necessary if there's just been a history of no, this is everything, no, it wasn't, and more came out later.
Right. Yeah. I think the times that you don't necessarily need one are when there's always been 100% honesty.
Right.
And that just isn't typical.
Not typical, no.
So, but if that is the case, great. You don't need to worry about that. But in most cases, it helps that process of helping the addict to be fully open and honest about things.
Definitely.
And it helps the partner to feel secure in those responses, and that they can trust that.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely the lie detector, and I think both David and I do the lie detector before you actually sit down and do the therapeutic disclosure.
Yeah.
So you don't do it and then do the lie detector and, oh, wait, we're missing stuff, right?
They failed, and we just spent 2 hours
Yes.
going through all of this, and we don't even know what part
Yes.
is the issue. So, yep.
So it's much, much better to prepare it, get it all the way ready, do that with the therapist, and then do the lie detector. And then when they've passed that, then sit down and do the disclosure. So I really like the point that David's making about giving everybody a little bit of a break, just because it is so stressful and so painful and so hard for both parties when this type of thing comes up. And so having a little bit of a break where you're going to get all the information, it's all going to come out, and it's all going to be in a therapeutic setting. The therapist is going to be there, and you're going to go through everything, and you're going to get all of your questions answered. It gives you the safety and the space to not have to bring it up every time you get triggered and every time you're feeling distressed and until 3:00 in the morning and all of those things. So, and it also helps avoid what we call like the trickle truth, where you know stuff and then you think you kind of know everything, but you're not sure, and then you're asking more questions, and a little something comes out later, and then a little something comes out later, and a little something comes out later, and more things just kind of trickle out. That can be re-traumatizing in and of itself.
For sure.
When you kind of feel like you know everything. So giving that deciding to do disclosure process just gives you all of this, gives you the space to minimize the damage, and allow for more like healing and safety.
Right. And it also allows the person who is the offender to slow down and think about it and put it together.
Yes.
Because they often, from my experience, want to heal, want to reconcile. They're just kind of, everything is coming all at once, and it's a lot, and it's a lot of questions, and it's long, really difficult conversations. And they're not even always trying to hide or minimize. They're just trying to sort it through themselves. But
Right.
it can look bad,
Right.
or, it feels bad because of what it is, just the nature of the information. And so they're trying, but it's days and weeks and months sometimes of just these questions, and the answers aren't satisfying enough because there is more information coming, but not necessarily they were trying to avoid it. They're just trying to put it together, and it's just such a hard process. So everybody
Right.
taking a break, we're committed to disclosure. We're going to follow a process, and that's going to be a much better way to go through this.
Yes. Yeah. It's, I mean, if you, I have the same experience with betrayed spouses when they're just really distressed and they're asking all the questions, and then like, yeah, but he didn't tell me about this, and he said this here, and then he said this over
Yeah.
here, and
Yep.
and and it feels like lying to them, and that is possible. And also it's very possible that they're just trying to figure it out and they can't remember everything. It's like, this isn't something that, when they're in that addiction space, they're not like, yes, this is my favorite thing and I want to remember every moment of this for the rest of my life, right? These are typically shameful experiences that they feel a lot of shame around. And when we do that, we typically don't want to think about it. We
Yep.
don't want to bring it up, and we kind of shove it to the back of our minds. And so, if there may be an experience that you can relate to with this that could be helpful. If you can think of a time when, you did something or did a few somethings that weren't the greatest and you kind of felt some shame around it. And then, you had to tell someone, right? Like, it's not something that all those details are going to be right in the front of your mind all the time, especially with something like an addiction where you've got years of stuff that's happened, and years of things that you're trying to kind of put out of your mind as best you can.
Right.
So it is just a process of sitting down and figuring out, and you should be with a therapist that is well versed at that has good, protocols and things, and can help them work through that and kind of pull it all up.
Yeah. And another really good point is just, we have more experience knowing what detail or information is helpful
Yes.
and what to avoid. That
Yes.
will only ever remain a trigger when it's a non-important detail, which, can be hard because it feels like if there's been any dishonesty, all detail is relevant because there's been dishonesty.
Mm-hmm.
But there is definitely detail that will not help.
Yes.
And so you need help to work through what that is.
Yes. And what would you say are some of the things that you think like, oh yeah, like not important detail. These details are just going to re-traumatize.
Right. If it was not an affair relationship, some of the things that have happened, then places, exact dates and times aren't relevant and not helpful. If
Yeah.
it's a relationship, that's different. Mm-hmm. If it was, like...
Or acting out with a person.
And so once we go through it with the person, we're able to say, okay, if this was a meaningful relationship, some of these details matter. Like if you're taking someone else to, your favorite restaurant, or where you always take
Right.
someone on their anniversary or something. But if it isn't detailed like that, but you knowing the place, you're now going to be driving past it every week, and you're going to be triggered and traumatized, re-traumatized just by seeing the place, even though that place did not have significance before. That's a detail that is unnecessary.
Yeah.
So it takes a little bit of, we have to talk about this to know what detail is relevant and what isn't. But if these are hookups and it's not the person, but it's just kind of a random thing, then it's not helpful to know that they went to this restaurant or to that place, or
Yeah.
because
Or
now it's
what
just
they
going
were
to be
wearing
more
or
things.
what you did,
Right.
and specifically, and yeah.
And that's another detail, is what exactly happened.
Yeah.
And sometimes, though, even that has some relevance.
Yeah, it does depend.
And so, again, this is something to talk about if certain things are avoided in the relationship, but then did happen outside the relationship, that can be relevant. You just need help to go through that.
Exactly.
So that, you have somebody who can guide that process, who hopefully from experience seeing the information that's unnecessary come out and the impact that had. And really what mostly happens is it just really slows this recovery down. Mm-hmm. Because one person thinks this is relevant and the other person doesn't. The betrayed partner is like, hey, this matters, why? And the other person is genuinely, there's not a solid why for this. And so that can get, messy. But keep in mind, this is post lie detector test where they passed and their body agrees with what they're saying.
Yeah.
And so this isn't just that we say, well, if that's what they say, that's got to be what it is. No, this is after disclosure.
Right.
And a process where we know.
Yes. Yeah. So again, disclosure, you want to have it set in stone, where you're going through a process with a therapist who understands, who knows what details are relevant, who can walk through that with you and make sure that it's all set and that you have a lie detector with that helps. And all those things are going to be really, really important in the process of recovery. And of course, planning, when you have that disclosure, you also plan aftercare with that as well. This is what we're going to do after
really
the
important.
Disclosure. This is how that's going to go. So, again, important points as part of the disclosure process.
Yeah. So these are just a few more of the steps for the partner.
Yeah, we got through two more.
I know, we have two more. And
we
then
have
just
two more.
some good expectations. We want to talk about that too.
Okay.
So
we'll finish up with that next time.
Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you then.
Okay. Thank you for listening to Two Therapists Talking. We look forward to sharing more conversations with you. Connect with us at twotherapisttalking.com or email podcast@twotherapisttalking.com. If you like what you're hearing, please get on and rate us and subscribe to the podcast.